Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Kesubos Kuf Vav. We are holding on the top of Kuf Vav Amud Aleph, but it's right in the middle of that story with Rav Anan. Perhaps let's just backtrack quickly and review the first part of the story. So let's go back to Kuf Amud Beis, 8 lines from the bottom. Rav Anan. Rav Anan was a Chacham, a Dayan. One day, Aisele Gavra, this fellow approaches him with a kanta, a bucket full of small fish, the gildani, the begili, small-sized fish, offering them as a gift to Rav Anan. Amar le, Rav Anan responds, "What happened today? Mai avideticha, what are you doing here? What did I do to you to receive this gift? What are you doing here today?" Amar le, he says, "Look, Dina Isli, I happen to have a din Torah that I need to conduct today with you, and I would like you to serve as a dayan." Hearing this, Rav Anan refused the gift. Furthermore, Amar he tells this fellow, in fact, I am disqualified from serving as your judge because I'm already tainted, I'm already swayed due to your generous gesture. Amar so the fellow says, "Okay, I accept, I respect your opinion. Dina demarle beina. Fine, I will not have a din from you. You will not be my dayan. Okay, that's a given. But at least accept my gift. Kibule lekabel mar. Please accept my gift. Deloy limna'an mar, so that you don't prevent me, you don't deprive me of me'akruve bikurim, from bringing bikurim." Now, we're not speaking about the Beis Hamikdash. In fact, Elisha wasn't even a kohen. Rashi says he came from Shevet Gad. So why is this compared to Bikurim? Answer is the Sanya. We have a brisa. Vish bo mibal shalisha. This fellow arrives from that place. Vayavei leisha helikim, and he offers the godly man Elisha the Navi lechem Bikurim, 20 loaves, lechem sa'irim, another loaf, v'karmel b'tiklainai, and another loaf v'karmel in his basket. So a total of 24 loaves to Elisha, described as Bikurim. V'chil Elisha eichel Bikurim hava. Since when is Elisha accepting Bikurim? Ella le'marlach. This teaches us a profound lesson. Kol maybe doirin Talmid Chacham, a person who offers a gift of support to a Talmid Chacham. Today we don't have karbanos. This is in lieu of karbanos. Ki'ilu makar Bikurim. It has always bringing a carbon to Hashem by supporting Hashem's representative. So please take this gift from me, says this fellow to Rav Anan. Amar le, Rav Anan responds, the truth is, kibule loy ba'inon di kabel. I didn't really have any intention of accepting this from you, but hashta da amras le tama, now that you have explained yourself, it's a legitimate claim. I understand you'd like to get a schus. Okay, reluctantly I will accept it from you. Mikabelna. Fine, he took the gift, but in terms of the din Torah, he had to find him an alternate judge. Shadre l'kamid Rav Nachman. Rav Anan sends him to Rav Nachman to serve as his dayan. Shalach le, he sends him with the following message: Nidai neimar lahigavr. Please take interest in this person's din, because I can't do anything for him. Now, Anan, myself, the name Anan, pasilna leiladina, I'm disqualified to serve as his judge. Amar, Rav Nachman, upon hearing this message, figured midishalach li hachi. The fact that Rav Anan sends me this type of message sounds like he's his relative. Shema mina krevehu, he's his relative, and that's why he can't do his din. So Rav Nachman took a liking to this fellow, figured he has to look after him because he's a privileged character, a relative of the great Rav Anan. So what happened? At that very moment, havikoim dino diasmi kamei, there happened to be another din Torah about to begin, a din involving Yisayimim. Omar, so Rav Nachman faced a dilemma. He said, look, I have one din right here, and there's a mitzvah to take interest in the first din that comes your way. It's a mitzvah asay, hay asay. But on the other hand, v'hay asay, tending to this fellow who in his mind was Rav Anan's relative, is also a fulfillment of a mitzvah asay of kavod haTorah. As Hashem Elokecha Tira is marba Talmid Chachamim v'adat pnei zaken, teaches us to honor a Talmid Chacham. Perhaps that should go first. And his conclusion was, indeed, asay the kavod Torah adif. When we match up one essay with the other, kavod Torah takes priority. So salke ledina di asmi. So he pushed aside the din with the Yisomim and gave them second priority to this din. Va'achse ledine, and he brought forth the din of this fellow, this alleged relative of Rav Anan. Kivan l'chaza ba'al dine. So now the opponent of this fellow sees yikara de ka'avadle, all this great honor accorded to his opponent by Rav Nachman. Istatem ta'anose. Suddenly he shut down. He was totally in the dark. He couldn't speak up because he was totally, intimidated by the fact that he was facing a chashav opponent. What happened as a result? Rav Anan, who with his deeds sort of brought about a disenfranchisement of this other fellow. It wasn't a direct intended act, but it was a goyrem. He brought it about by way of goyrem. Hashem is medaktek with his great men to the utmost, and he suffered as a result. Rav Anan have a rugel Eliyahu de Asi Lagabe. Eliyahu Navi was a frequent guest at Rav Anan's place. Dava Masnile Seder Eliyahu. He would teach him the Torah of Eliyahu, the brises that we have today from Eliyahu Navi, Tanad Eliyahu. Even David Hachi, once he did this act which brought about the fellow lost out, the other fellow suffered on his behalf due to his ma'aseh. Istalik. Eliyahu Navi stopped coming to him. Yosef Betanis, Rav Anan, started fasting. Uba Rachmini daven to Hashem. Va'asa, and Eliyahu Navi returned, but with one difference. Ki asa have a mavisli beusi. When Eliyahu Navi would arrive, Rav Anan would suddenly become frightened and overcome by fear. Marshar says this is measure for measure. Midah connected midah, which since he brought about a frightening by that other fellow. Va'ava tevusas, Rav Anan made a box. Yosef Kamei, and sat inside to sort of protect himself. Ada apikle sidra, until Eliyahu Navi finished teaching him the Torah. So there were two sort of stages. One was out of the box and one was inside the box. Behind the Amrin, that's why we have two parts to Tanad Eliyahu. Seder Eliyahu Rabbah. One section is called Eliyahu Rabbah. Tosfos says it's a much longer and greater portion relating to the time that Rav Anan was able to sit directly with Eliyahu before this story occurred. Seder Eliyahu Zuta, the small portion of Eliyahu's teaching that took place once Rav Anan had to make that box and learn from the inside. Continues the Gemara B'Shnei de Rav Yosef. During Rav Yosef's lifetime, Havarischa, there was a kas, an anger expression from Hashem, and there was a shortage of food, a great famine. Amrle Rabban Rav Yosef, Rabban asked Rav Yosef, Liboy Mar Rachmi, please daven for the famine to end. Amar Lahu responded, now is not a time to daven. Hashta, look, Uma Elisha, even Elisha, the great tzaddik, who had so many Talmidim and so many Chachamim dependent upon him for Parnasa. When the Rabbanan would leave his shir, his learning, look how many were left behind, those that depended on him for sustenance. Trei Alfan, 2,000, Umasan Rabbanan, and 200 Rabbanan, 2,200 Rabbanan. And so many were dependent upon him, but still, Be'idan Rischo, and that was a time of agitation in heaven. Apparently they would know when it's time of Rischa. It's something that you have to be a tzaddik to figure. So when it was a time of Rischa, and it was a time of famine and shortage of food, Lo Yahava Boy Rachmi, he wouldn't interfere with davening. So even him, the great man with all those chachamim, Ana Boy Rachmi, you expect me to interfere, to daven for the shortage, for the rav to pass? And the Mefarshim ask, what do you mean? Of course, it's standard procedure to daven when times are troubled. So apparently here it's different. There was an Idan Rischa, time of Kas, as Rashi says, something which the Chachamim discerned as a very serious moment, which you just let it ride out and pass through. Says the Gemara, how indeed do we know that Elisha had so many Chachamim who were dependent upon him for Parnasa D'chsev? That's the pasuk we mentioned before. Vayayim Rashar, so Elisha's the servant turns to Elisha, Ma etain ze lifnei mei ish. So back to the story with the 22 breads. What am I going to serve the 100 people? Now, what exactly was he talking about? My lifnei mei ish. What do you mean in front of 100? Ilema dekulu lifnei mei ish. Did he mean, all these breads, 22 in total? I can't serve them to 100 people. Why not? It's enough. B'shnei betzeres, in the times of hunger and famine. 22 loaves for 100 people, it's a lot of food. So what's he complaining about? Ella, rather he meant like this. The kol chad v'chad. I cannot serve every single one bread per 100 people. Kamei ish, because there were 22 loaves and there were 2,200 chachamim dependent upon them. That's too little for too many people. So once on the topic of large-sized, shiurei Torah, says the Gemara, Kavu miftiri rabbanan be Rav Huna be Rav. When the Chachamim used to leave Rav's shiur, havu paishi. Look how many Chachamim were left behind and would eat off his table. Alfa umasan rabbanan, 1,200 Chachamim. Maybe Rav Huna. After Rav Huna finished his lecture, havu paishi tamnemeya rabbanan, 800 would stay behind for their meal. Rav Huna have a darish bitlei samaroi. Rav Huna had such a huge population by his shiurim, he would have to have 13 amoraim. An amora was a fellow with like a mouthpiece. He would be the announcer, the fellow with a loud voice, who would hear the words from the chacham and then let everybody hear it loud and clear. So he had 13 of these agents dispersed throughout the crowd. That's such a great crowd, such a big olam he had. In fact, Kavu Kaimi Rabbanan, when the Rabbanan would get up, Mimasifta to Rav Huna, from Rav Huna's learning. So after the shir was over, they sat on the floor. So when they got up and they sort of dusted off their clothing, have a solik, avka, the dust which rises as a cloud, the kasi liliyaman actually obstruct the sun. V'amri maravan, down in Eretz Yisrael, all the way down in Eretz Yisrael, kamul, they would say, v'amri, they would say, Rav Huna's shir in Bavel is over. Kamulei mimisifted Rav Huna bavla. Look, everybody just got up from Rav Huna's shir. And some learned it was a nace to show the cover, the great cover Torah that went on there. Others learned it's just a sort of an exaggeration to highlight the big crowd at Rav Huna's shir. Ki havu mifteri rabbanim be Rav Yosef. When the Rabbanan left Rabba and Rav Yosef's shir, it was a rather smaller crowd by proportion. Havu paishi arba me Rabbanan. Only 400 would remain behind. V'korah l'nafshayin Rav Yosef would consider them inferior to the other Rabbanan compared to Rav Huna, etc. They only had a small crowd. Yasmi, like orphans, they're just like orphans compared to the other Chachamim. Kiavu. Miftiri Rabbanan be'abaye, when the Rabbanan would leave Abaye's shir, V'amrilo, and some say Be'erav Papa from his yeshiva, V'amrilo, some say Be'erav Ashi, it was a rather smaller crowd. Havu Paishi, Mosan Rabbanan, only 200 Rabbanan were left behind. V'kar Nafshav, they would refer to themselves as double Yisomim, Yasmi, the Yasmi, on account of their rather smallish crowd. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Radifa Amar Rav Ami. Mevakri Mumen Shebirushalayim. The expert blemish examiners. So we're speaking, according to Tosfos, that these were expert checkers. They would check the karbanos before the hakrava to ensure that they are free of any moment. So they had an official job and they got an official salary. They would accept their salary from the machzis hashekel. So once a year, you would bring the shekel into this large chamber. They would scoop up in those buckets anything in that container was meant for the karbanos tzibur, but some of that money was directed to pay these official salaries, because these were carbon-related jobs, and they were deserving of the Trumas Halishka for their salary. And Tosfos back yesterday explains that, at least in the next cases where they taught Torah is not meant to be charged for. Rather, we're speaking about people who had no other job. This was their full-time occupation, which entitled them to get a salary simply to, just to keep them going, to support them for their basic needs. So they got their salary from Trumas Halishka. Amar Vidam Shmuel, likewise, Talmid Chachamim, Hamalamdim Hilcha Shchita L'Kehanim, those who would instruct the Kehanim as per the halachas of Shechita, they were also entitled to a salary from the communal fund. Likewise, Talmid Chachamim hamalamdim hilchas kmitza lekehanim. Those Chachamim who would give the kmitza lessons to the Kehanim. We know kmitza was a very difficult and tricky task, so you needed skilled instructors. They would also get their schar noitlin scharan mitrumas halishka. Amar Rabba bar Achana or Rabbi Yechanan. In addition to that, we have the Megiyah Svarim Shebirushalayim, those who would proofread and edit the Svarim, the Sifrei Torah in Yerushalayim. It's very important to have a properly edited sefer. So these fellows as well, they were supplied by the Trumas Halishka. Now, according to Rashi, he says, we're speaking Magiyah Svarim Shkol Echad V'Adam, Adam V'Adam, even private Svarim, those checkers would get their salary. And Rashi says the Bezdin saw that people were not really too meticulous about maintaining the integrity of their Svarim, and it's very important. You're not allowed to own a sefer which has inaccuracies. Bezdin saw that they were being negligent. They were sort of mafkir. They made into hefker some of the money of the Trumas Halishka, which is typically meant for karbanis, but they redirected it for this purpose as well. Other Rishonim, Talmidei Rashba, the Rai would learn that we're speaking about Svarim which contained detailed instructions as per Shechita, as per Kmitza, so they were used for carbon-related instructions, and in fact, this justified taking from Trumas Halishka for these purposes. In any case, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav, Noshima Ergois beParoichais, the women who would weave the curtains in the Beis Hamikdash, they too were noitli schoren mit Trumas Halishka. But I myself, Rav Nachman, maintains differently. Mikache bedek habayis. Rather than taking from the Trumas Halishka fund, which is meant for karbanos, what do paroiches have to do with karbanos? I maintain they took it from the building fund. Fact is, the curtains, especially specific curtains which were serving in lieu, in substitute for walls, as we're going to see in a minute, those specific paroiches or parches were meant to be funded by the Bedek Habayis, the building fund. Meisve, we're going to have a kasha. You say from building fund, well, Nashima Ergois beParchos Ubeis Garmu, the family called Beis Garmu Al Masa Lechem Apanim, who took care of the Lechem Apanim Ubeis Aptinos, this other family Al Masa Akteres, who were in charge of producing Keteres. All these individuals, Kulon Hoyenoikles, Scharan Mitrumas Halishka, they took from Trumas Halishka, not from Bedek Habayis, including the Paroiches. How can you tell me otherwise? Answers the Gemara, Hasam B'Dibavi. When the Brisa describes the paroiches being funded by the Trumas Halishka, we're speaking about the curtains hanging over the doorways, meant simply for privacy. So that enhanced the Hakravas Karbanos, and that deserved Trumas Halishka funding, as opposed to my paroiches, the ones that I was talking about, Tachas Binyan, right? Those were the other ones, were a substitute for a wall. Well, a wall is meant to be funded by the building fund, and likewise, these specific curtains are funded by the building fund as well. We had two types of curtains in the Mikdash. In the second Beis Hamikdash, you see, in contrast to the first Beis Hamikdash, where there was a wall between the Heichel and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the second time around, in the second Beis Hamikdash, that building, so to speak, the Heichel and Kodesh HaKadoshim building was way taller, 100 amas high. It was just too high to make a narrow wall. It wouldn't stay up. So an amma wide wall between Heichel and Kodesh HaKadoshim was not enough. And they couldn't make it wider, because otherwise they would be infringing upon, the space on both sides of that wall. So instead they made a curtain, but not one curtain. They had to make two curtains because they were unsure how to treat that border, that no man's land, that Amma. Is it considered part of this side, the Heichel, or part of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? So they made a curtain on either side. This is called the Amma Traxin. So those curtains were not really privacy curtains. They were serving as a substitute for a wall. A wall comes from Bedek Habayis. So we have two types of curtains funded by two types of funds. So we have the 13 parchos in the second Beis Hamikdash. Shiva, the first 7, were standard curtains, Keneged Shiva Sh'arim, hanging on the doorways. Echad, a Pesach Shel Echel, 1, at the entranceway to the Heichal, Ve'echad Pischa Shel Ulam, on the way into the Ulam, Beis B'Dvir, that's the one we just mentioned. 2, between the Heichal and Kodesh HaKadoshim, that space is called Dvir. Beis Kenegdom Ba'aliyah, likewise another 2 correspondingly, right on top of those curtains. You see there was a second floor above, so we had 2 curtains right above that space at that same location. So in conclusion, we have a list of all these salaries paid for by the Trumas Halishka, typically carbon-related activities. Regarding the Paroche, so Rav says, from Trumas Halishka, Rabbi Nachman says only the ones that were serving as privacy curtains, which enhanced the service in the Mikdash, but the ones that served in lieu of walls, funded by Bedek HaBayis. Taner Rabban, what else? Nosham HaMegalis Bnein LePara. We know that they took elaborate measures in preparation for the Para Aduma procedure. In fact, they took kids and they put them into separate areas. In fact, the women would give birth in these isolated courtyards to maintain their kids b'tahara. So the women who would raise their kids in those places, they would get a set salary. There was no need. Why? Noshim Yikoros, Shebi Yerushalayim, the prominent wealthy women of Yerushalayim, they would support them. They would feed them, and clothe them. On the topic of funding Mikdash-related expenses, Rav Huna asks Rav the following question: Klei Shoros, what about the kalim used in service of the karbonos on the Mizbeach? Mao sheyeasu mikoche bedek habayis. Question: how do we buy these kalim? Pedek habayis or Trumas Halishka? What's the question? Tzorich Mizbeach ninu. Are they considered Mizbeach-related expenses? Umikoche bedek habayis also, just as the Mizbeach, at least the exterior Mizbeach ha'oila, on the outside of the Beis HaMikdash, that was made of stone. It was a structure. So perhaps the kalim servicing that Mizbeach, they as well was sourced in Bedek HaBayis. Or you can say Tzorich Karbaninu. They were in service of Karbanos, and therefore Trumas Halishka Hayu, they were purchased using Trumas Halishka, which is a carbon-related fund. Hayu Eisen Eisen. Amalei, so Rav responds, Ein Na'asin Olam Trumas Halishka. Only Trumas Halishka was used for that. Bedek HaBayis, well, that's a building fund. You don't use it for Klei Shoros. Eisvei Rav Huna asks him a question. A pasuk in Divrei Hayamim describes a story as follows: so they had a huge building fund, and when they were done working, what did they do with the extra money? The leftover money was brought by Aseu Kalim el Beis Hashem Klei Shoros v'Gomer. He used the extra Bedek HaBayis money to purchase Kalim. Amle Rav was not impressed that Krayach Ksuvi, the Rebbe who taught you Ksuvim, Lo Yakrayach Nevi, failed to teach you Nevi'im. There's a pasuk in Nevi'im in Malachim actually. Ach Lo Ye'aseh Beis Hashem Sipois Kesef. You don't use building fund money for Sipois Kesef, for Klei Shoros. Rather, Kilo Oisei Amlocha Yitnu is directed to the workers, to the Bedek HaBayis. So you see that Bedek HaBayis is strictly to be used for building-related expensive, not for Klei Shoros. Well, then we have a stira within the Psukim, Yachi, Kashu Kroyadadi. In one pasuk we say, Bedek HaBayis only for Bayis. And the other pasuk we say, the leftover Bedek HaBayis funds went over to the Klei Shoros. The answer is as follows. Loikasha kan shagavu v'yisiru. In the first pasuk, they collected, they used, they had left over. It was directed for the Klei Shoros. Kan shagavu v'yisiru. In pasuk number 2, what they collected for Bedek HaBayis, there was nothing left over at this point. They have no right to redirect those monies to Klei Shoros. Well, says the Gemara, who cares if it's leftovers? Why would that justify redirecting of the funds? What difference does it make if it's left over? It's earmarked for a specific purpose. Amar Bavo, this is a famous phrase, Leiv Bezdin Masnaleim, the heart of Bezdin they had their heart on it, meaning initially, when the money was collected, they were already mindful. It was done with a condition. Any leftovers are redirected to another cause, that's fine. If all the monies were needed for Bedek HaBayis, that's fine. But otherwise, if there's leftover monies, Yehuli Klei Shoros, it will be redirected and re-earmarked for Klei Shoros. Tanad Rabbi Shmuel. In fact, Rabbi Shmuel tells us as well that Klei Sharis boin mitrumas halishka. Trumas halishka, that's the money used for Klei Sharis. They're both carbon-related materials, and it's a perfectly matching shidduch. Shenemar es sha'ar hakesef. So the pasuk says, well, leftover monies are meant to be used for Klei Sharis. So this is the pasuk we mentioned earlier, but he sort of reinterprets that pasuk. Rather than speaking about leftover bedek habayis money redirected to Klei Sharis, just the opposite. Ezo kesef sheish l'shirayim. Which money has leftovers? Havi omer ze trumas halishka. So what happens is, they bring their machzas hashekel. They fill, an entire chamber with coins, and then 3 times a year they scoop out with these containers called the kupos, and that money is meant for karbanis. Now, inevitably, many times there were karbanis, there were leftover monies in those containers as well. Not speaking about the shirayim in the lishka itself. We're speaking about the remnants within those containers, and that's what the pasuk is telling us to use for. That money is meant to be used for Klei Sharis. So that's the drasha. Money which has leftover, that's the trumas halishka, because typically there is money left over in the. There is always left over in the chamber. Again, we have a chamber filled with coins. 3 times a year they scoop out. That's called the trumas halishka. That's meant for karbanos, right? And Rav and Tanad Rabbi Shmuel tell us from that scoop, from that container, some of it, after you're finished with the karbanos, the rest is taken for Klei Sharis. How do we know? Because it says sha'ar hakesef. That's meant to be used for Klei Sharis, and the drush is which money has remnants, shirayim, left behind. In this case, the chamber always has money left behind. Ezo kesef sheish l'shirayim. Which type of fund has leftovers all the time? Trumas halishka, which has leftover money in the chamber. So the trumas halishka itself is meant to be directed for the Klei Sharis. Okay. Ve'ema shirayim gufay. Okay. Having said that, we have another kasha. Sha'ar hakesef. Maybe the actual remnants left behind in the chamber, in the room, not the trumas halishka, which is perhaps meant to be strictly for karbanos. The answer is Keda Amar Rava. As Rava tells us elsewhere regarding another halacha, there's a halacha that the carbon oil, the carbon tamid brought at the beginning of the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, that's meant to become first. That has first priority. Why? Because it says v'arach aleh ha'oila. The extra hay teaches us oila rishona. That's the first oila, the known oila, the famous oila, right? The oila that's mentioned first in the discussion of the karbanos, oila sabayker, that's mentioned first in the Torah. In Bamidbar Chavches, it says V'marta lahem za'isha. That's the first carbon meant to bring on a daily basis in the Mikdash. So drawing on that, method of drasha, the hay is a known specific oila. Hachanami, when it says that they used the Shar HaKesef, that was the pasuk that we are referring to. Shar HaKesef, the hay HaKesef is Kesef Rishon, the first monies, meaning the scooped out, the Trumas Halishka monies, that is meant at least partially for the Klei Sharis. So bottom line is, according to Rav, according to Tanat Rabbi Shmuel, which monies are used to fund Klei Sharis? Trumas Halishka. Mesri, here comes a kasha. The Brisa says differently. Haktoris, v'chol karbanos tzibur. The karbanos used in the Mikdash are all purchased from Trumas Halishka. Bon mit Trumas Halishka, which was meant for funding of communal karbanos. Mizbeach Hazav, but the interior gold mizbeach, which Rashi says is sort of classified as a Klei Sharis because it's a mobile entity. The next word, Levina, according to the Haggadah Sagrah, is meant to be omitted because that's like a regular carbon. Why would that be included in the Klei Sharis? Klei Sharis and the standard equipment used for karbanos. Boin mit moisar nesachem You don't use Trumas Halishka, rather something called Moisar Nesachim. Rashi explains, for instance, a supplier committed to supply a full year's worth of soilus, of high quality flour for the karbanes, for the menaches, and now the price dropped. They set a rate at £3 per dollar, now it's £4 per dollar. He must supply at the lower rate. So there's a lot left over at the end of the year. That's called Moisa Nesachim, the leftover of the flour which is used for the Nesachim, the carbon Nesachim. They sell it off, and the money is directed for the Kli Shabbos. Thirdly, Mizbeach Ha'olah, all the building related expenses, Mizbeach Ha'olah, Halishkois, the chambers, Va'azaris, Kulan Boin Mikoch Bedekabayis, building fund is meant for that. Chutz L'choimas Hazor, anything outside the Hazor, all those expenses are Boin Mishiyor Halishkois, the money left behind in the chamber at the end of the year. Zoi Sheshaninu Choima Seir Migdalei Seir, that explains the halacha that we know, the city wall, the towers, v'chol tzorchei ir, all the other municipal expenses, boin mishiyar alishka is supplied, is paid for by the shiyar alishka. Bottom line is, what does the Brisa tell us about purchasing klei sharis? Instead of trumas alishka, it says moisar nesachim, which is in direct contradiction to our earlier view. In fact, says the Gemara Tanoi, it is a machlekes Tanoim. In the upcoming Brisa, we will see a machlekes in terms of how to purchase klei sharis. This nan, moisa truma mahayu oisen ba. What do they do with the leftover money in the kupos, in those containers used to scoop out trumas alishka? It was typically directed for karbanes. What's the next thing we could use it for? Rikuye zav, these golden sheets. Sipur the beis kodesh hakadoshim, used to plaster the walls and the floors of the kodesh hakadoshim. I guess that's second best to bringing a carbon. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, no, he says, Moisar Perois Leketza Mizbeach, any profits earned by the Hegdish authority, when they would invest their extra money, the Gemara will describe that soon, that was used for Kayetza Mizbeach, sort of a dessert for the Mizbeach, to keep the Mizbeach from being idle. So they would purchase special karbanes to keep the Mizbeach active with all these karbanes oila. Moisar Truma Leklei Sharis, according to him, the extra trumas halishka, anything left behind after purchasing the karbanes, was leklei sharis, and this is exactly in tandem with Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, happens to be the same name, Rabbi Shmuel, and Tana de Rabbi Shmuel earlier, that klei sharis were purchased using trumas halishka. Rabbi Kiva disagrees. Rabbi Kiva Omer moiser truma leketza mizbeach. The leftover trumas halishka was meant for ketza mizbeach, and what was used to buy klei sharis? Something else. Moiser nesachim leklei sharis, as we mentioned before, the leftover, the excess of the supplier, etc. That was used for klei sharis. So here we have a machlekes in terms of what was used for to buy the how was the klei sharis bought, trumas halishka or otherwise. Rabbi Chanina's kanakanim. He as well will hold like Rabbi Shmuel in terms of what to use for the klei sharis. Moiser nesachim leketza mizbeach. Moiser truma is leklei sharis. Now, if we realize, we pay close attention to the wording, we find that in contrast to Rabbi Shmuel, who made reference to something called Moisar Peres, the profits from investing money, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Chanina's Kanakanim, the most recent two Tanoim, made no mention of Peres. Apparently, they didn't agree that any investments, any business was done in the Beis Hamikdash. Him and him, they totally disagreed regarding this whole investment process. They didn't hold of it. And soon the Gemara will give us a reason why not. It's not something that Hegdish is meant to be involved with. So we mentioned Peres, this investment system. What was it? Peres Mai, the Sanya. Moisa Truma Me Hayu Oisenba. What would they do with the leftover Truma Salishka? Like in Peres Bezoil, they would purchase commodities cheap, and sell it off at a higher price. And the profits were directed at Keita Mizbeach, Mekitzim Beis Mizbeach, to supply the Keita Mizbeach. And this is consistent with what we just learned. Moisa Piros Leketza Mizbech, any profits used during this business procedure was for the Ketza Mizbech. So this is as per Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, right? But what about the other shittos? What do you mean they didn't agree regarding Piros? This not. What would they do? They left their money in the lishka. They would purchase all kinds of Migdash related commodities to be sold to willing customers who would come to the Migdash for bringing karbonis, wines, oils, flowers, v'aschar lehegdish. Any money earned would go to the hegdish. Div Rabbi Shmuel. That's Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. Mentioned earlier as well, there was something called Moisa Peres. Rabbi Kiva Omer, no, that's inappropriate, it's out of sync. Ein mistakrin b'shal hegdish. You never earn and invest hegdish funds. Af loy b'shalaniyim, likewise, with tzedakah money, for different reasons. B'shalaniyim, my time alay, why not invest hegdish profit, hegdish money, earn great profits on behalf of hegdish? It doesn't sound right. Ein anius v'makam ashiris. We refrain from doing something which would appear to the casual observer as though we're stuck, we're short of funds, we have to do anything. We're desperate. It looks like anius, like poverty, in a place of hegdish, which is meant to exude wealth and abundance. So skip that. Bishel aniyim my time. What's wrong with investing tzedakah money? Dilma misramalu anya. Perhaps all the money will be invested at the time when an ani arrives for his shir. There's nothing to give him. You can't tie up all this money because it might not be there in their time of need. So what did we learn today? We started with the story of Rav Anan and this fellow. So he refused to officiate at the Din Torah. He sent him to Rav Nachman, who mistook him as a relative and took up his Din Torah first. His opponent was silenced as a result, and Rav Anan had sort of an einish as a result with Eliyahu Navi coming to him. This time he was shut down, he was frightened, he had to hide in a box. We learned about a great number of Talmidim who were present at the various Shiurim and Bavel, up to the point of Rav Huna's crowd, who kicked up a dust cloud upon concluding their shiur. We learned about the various positions in Yerushalayim who were funded, who were salaried using the Trumas Alishka. We had a discussion regarding how to fund the Paroiches, regarding how to fund the Klei Sharis, and we concluded with several shittos, as well as the reason not to invest Hegdesh money and tzedakah money as well. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.